It ended up taking me about 8 years to get to a 3 plate bench press, but honestly, I could have gotten to 3 plates in 4 to 5 years because for 4 years, I kept lifting like an idiot and kept making poor choices, which resulted in pretty much wasting 4 years of training, not making any real progress. Here are the 3 biggest mistakes I made, which held me back for years from being able to make any meaningful progress. The first mistake I made was ignoring pain. Everyone knows the saying, no pain, no gain. But when it comes to lifting, this saying only holds true to a certain point. If we're talking about the pain and discomfort you feel when you're pushing your muscles, then it's all good. But if you're experiencing a sharp pain or pain that doesn't feel quite right, that's a sign that you definitely cannot ignore. After 2 years of training, I started to develop pain in my right shoulder from doing bench press. At first, it wasn't too bad, and I felt like it was something I could tolerate and still train heavy. I continued training, ignoring the pain. The longer I ignored the pain, the worse it would get. This stupid training style worked for a little bit, but I ended up getting up to a 1 rep max around 255 pounds at a weight of 160 pounds, but off the bench and bouncing the weight off of my chest. But by the end of the 3rd year, the pain in my shoulder got so bad that I couldn't even lift a plate without bad pain in the shoulder. And then I would rush back in as soon as my shoulder would start to feel better, and I would try and lift heavy again, and I would constantly re-injure the shoulder again and again. This led to almost 2 years of no progress at all on the bench press. I went and got all kinds of treatments like massage therapy, physiotherapy. I scoured all across the internet for rehab exercises for the rotator cuff and did all kinds of external rotation exercises. And all that stuff helped a little bit, but none of these things fixed the root of the problem, which was just me ignoring my body, demanding too much from it. If you're experiencing pain, it's because the body is sending you a signal. It's telling you something is wrong and you have to address it. Don't ignore pain. A lot of small pain issues can be recovered from and fixed in a few weeks. But if you ignore the small pain, it can easily turn into a major issue that could turn into a much bigger setback than a few weeks. It'll turn you into one of those old guys at the gym who used to be a beast, but now can't even bench press the bar with full range of motion because they ignored all their pain. If I addressed my pain issue early on and just lifted a little bit lighter, I could have literally saved myself years of time. The second mistake I made was chasing PRs. By constantly trying to hit a new PR all the time, I would lift way too heavy and the reps would often be inconsistent. They wouldn't be locked in. In order to get stronger at a lift, you need each repetition to be the same, because then you're actually strengthening the specific movement you want to strengthen. When you're lifting a weight that's super heavy, it's a lot harder to maintain optimal positioning, and you're more prone to get out of groove. When you get out of groove, you end up having ugly reps, which are inefficient and don't actually help build strength. On top of that, they leave you more vulnerable to issues like pain and injury. In order to build strength, you need to be able to make each rep move exactly the same. It doesn't matter if it's heavy or if it's just your warm-up. Once I stopped focusing on trying to hit a new PR every few weeks and just focused on doing the best I could and follow through with the program as honestly as I could, that's when I started making the most progress. When I say honestly, I mean like if I lifted too heavy and the weight was not moving with control, I would have to be honest with myself and say, okay, that's too heavy, and take some weight off and get quality reps in. The third problem I had was shiny object syndrome. I was constantly switching up my technique and programming instead of sticking with one thing and just practicing it over and over again. When you change your form or programming, it's going to take some time before you actually see if it makes a difference. The first few weeks, your body is just getting accustomed to the changes, and so you won't be able to see much of a difference right away. By constantly changing my bench technique and programming, I wasn't able to give myself the time to build momentum with each different form/program and actually see if the method itself works or not. The solution to this was just picking one style of benching and then one type of program. I stopped searching YouTube for bench press technique videos, stopped searching the web for programs, and I just focused. Whenever you switch technique or programs, there's going to be a period where your body is getting used to the changes, and basically you're just learning how to use the form or the program. There's no way to even tell if one method works better than the other if you don't give it time to take an effect. If you're doing this, you might have already found the best technique for yourself, but you didn't even realize it because you didn't give enough time to take effect. By just sticking with one way for at least 3 months, you can actually see the effects and make an informed decision on whether or not you want to change it. And if it works and you're making progress and it feels good, then stick with it. And if at some point you decide you want to try something different, do so, but be prepared to give it some time again to see how the changes will actually start to affect your training. The fourth problem I had was not being honest with the standard of my lifting. I used to have bad habits of cheating the lift. Whenever the weights got heavy, I would bounce the weight up, I would let my butt go off the bench, and I would lie to myself, pretending that I was getting stronger when really I was just cheating the lift and making it easier. This led to a big problem in my programming because I would count the cheat lift as a PR, and then I would end up being too weak to do the prescribed working sets because I wasn't actually strong enough to lift those weights properly with that much volume. And this would also lead to me constantly getting injured too because I was lifting too heavy and with poor stability/control. In order to measure whether or not you're actually making progress with the bench press, the lifts have to be performed to the same standards at all times to be able to compare properly. For example, instead of bouncing 225 off my chest with my butt off the bench and claiming that was a good lift, I would drop the weight down to 205, making sure that I kept my form throughout the lift. In order to get stronger at a specific movement pattern, you need to practice that specific movement pattern. Bouncing heavy weights with your butt off the bench is a different movement pattern to pressing a heavy weight off your chest with control butt on the bench. I used to tell myself that cheat reps would help me overload my muscles and get even stronger, which might have some truth to it, but the problem was I was strengthening a movement pattern which is different to the movement pattern I wanted to strengthen. Even if they're very similar movements, those tiny differences in positioning make a huge difference in how much weight you can actually move. The reality is you only get stronger at the specific movement pattern you train. And in actuality, practicing the specific movement pattern you want to strengthen with lighter weights will have a much bigger effect on your gains than lifting heavy weights with a different movement pattern. When it comes to getting stronger at barbell lifts like bench press, it's all about strengthening the specific movement pattern. It's not just about moving the weight from point A to point B, it's about how you move the weight from point A to point B.